I take personal responsibility for it. That's on me. But I'm going to try my best to point out what we are able to see, and y'all can help me out by just sort of using your imagination a little bit, all right? Because what we like to do first is sort of get oriented, because if I point at something and I say, look at that, nobody knows what I'm talking about. They'll have a different frame of reference, so we need to establish some sort of things so that we can talk about where something is relative to something else that we all understand. The best way to do that is by finding north. Does anybody know what direction north is? Point it out. Few of y'all got it? Perfect. So the north direction is actually straight down this sidewalk in between those two classrooms. Now we built the RUAC just like that. It's a little bit easier. We have our east dome, our west dome, have a little grid system. That's nice. But if you are not at the Rafe's Urban Astronomy Center, as you will not be likely for most of your life, you can still find north if you are out on a clear night. You can use a couple well-known groups of stars. One of them is the Big Dipper. Anybody familiar with the Big Dipper? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Awesome. The Big Dipper is right over there in the northwest, behind all of those clouds. But everybody, we're going to use our imagination real quick. You all know what the Big Dipper looks like? Yep. So the Big Dipper is made out of 7 stars. There are 3 stars in a little bend that make up the handle, and then 4 stars in a rectangle that make up the pot. It's supposed to look like a big cooking pot. And y'all can use this trick next time you're out on a clear night, unlike this one. If you take the 2 stars that make up the wall of the pot on the opposite side of the handle, you can connect those guys in a line, shoot that out into the sky, and the next very bright star you see is going to be a very well-known star, Polaris, also known as the North Star. So the North Star would be over right above this sidewalk, and it would be 33 degrees up in the air. Now, there's a specific reason why it's 33 degrees up in the air, and that is because here in Denton, our latitude is 33 degrees. That star, the reason it's so handy and useful for us is because it sits right above the axis of the Earth. What that means is if you made your way up to the North Pole, you would see that North Star Polaris go up and up and up in the sky until it was at the point right above your head. If you were down at the equator, you would see that star go all the way down until it was on the horizon. So at 33 degrees latitude, it sits 33 degrees up in the sky. This is where I want to show y'all a handy trick to star hop around. That is called the fist stacking method. So everybody, give me a thumbs up. Okay, now put the thumb down, leave your fist up. Okay, cool. So with your fist all the way out, fully extended, like you're holding a vertical pole, that represents about 10 degrees in the sky. So if you rest a fist over at the north horizon, so right between those classrooms there, that represents about 10 degrees up in the sky. If you take a second fist and stack it on top of that one, now you're at 20. Take your first fist, stack it on top of that one, and you're at 30. And then if you put your thumb up just a little bit, that would get you at 33 degrees. So obviously that's in between a lot of clouds, but that is 2 ways that you can find Polaris. Okay, so yeah, that's how we can find that one. Another way is by using the constellation Cassiopeia. Has anyone heard of Cassiopeia? Okay, so y'all, it's a little bit less talked about than the Big Dipper, but it's a really easy constellation, and it currently lies in the northeast, like right above that radio tower, and it is made up of 5 stars. It looks sort of like a 3 if you like carved it into a tree. And that one, hopefully, as the clouds move, will be visible. And then if you find one of us, we can show you how you can use that one to find the North Star as well. That one is a little harder to use our imagination. But the reason why both of these groups of stars are so handy is because they lie in what is called the circumpolar region. And that is just the area of the sky that never rises or sets. You find that area of the sky by drawing a line from the horizon up to the North Star. You treat that as the radius of a big old circle. And so you'll see, if we like sped up time, that everything would rise in the east, set in the west, but all the things within that circle would never go under the horizon. And so that's why these are 2 really cool groups of stars. Now, you might have noticed that I kept referring to the Big Dipper as a group of stars and not as a constellation. That is because, contrary to popular belief, the Big Dipper is not actually a constellation. It is something called an asterism, which is just a more modern regrouping of stars. It is part of a larger constellation, Ursa Major, and you might be familiar also with the Little Dipper, which actually has Polaris in it. and that has an official name, Ursa Minor. And that one is an official constellation. So we have Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. We get those names from the Greeks, as we do most of our constellations, and it translates to Big Bear and Little Bear. The asterism itself, though, is just something that people in more recent history thought, I don't see bears all that often. I do see cooking pots, and these are really bright stars, and so we're going to make that its own group of stars. But the scientific community said, no, officially, they're just an asterism. One other asterism that is visible right now is a pretty well-known one called the Summer Triangle. So everybody, if you look up at the zenith, that's the point right above your head, and then a little bit towards the west, maybe about 10 degrees towards the west, that super bright star that you see, that is Vega. Vega is the alpha star in the constellation Lyra. That just means it's the brightest one currently. And that is one of the stars in the Summer Triangle. If you look back up at zenith and you go about that same distance towards the east, you'll see a star that is not quite as bright as Vega, but still pretty bright. Do y'all see the one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Awesome. That is Deneb. That is in the constellation Cygnus. Deneb translates to tail, and Cygnus is a swan with Deneb as its tail. If we were able to see more of it, as you go towards the south, you can see this sort of swan shape. But the last star in the Summer Triangle, I can't find it. There it is. Okay, so back up at zenith, if you go about 20 degrees to the south, it's behind a little bit of cloud, so it's a little tricky to see. But that third star is called Altair in the constellation Aquila. So again, it's sort of peeking out right now. Up at zenith, about 20 degrees directly to the south. So those three stars all together make up the Summer Triangle, another really useful asterism. And one of my favorite things about this asterism is that there are a lot of really cool objects in here, deep space objects. Has anybody seen the Unistellar over there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? That was looking at a deep space object called the Dumbbell Nebula. There's a whole bunch of planetary nebula up in the Summer Triangle, and I think that these are some of the most fascinating objects up in our sky. Planetary nebula is what happens to a star like our sun at the end of its life. So any star that's about 80% the mass of our sun, up to about 8 times the mass of our sun, is going to turn into this big sort of like colorful puffball at the end of its life. Because we know that a star's whole job is to create energy, right? Our sun currently is turning a bunch of its hydrogen into helium. It's basically just a big ball of hydrogen that is so massive that its own gravity is squishing it down. And when it does that, it pushes these hydrogen atoms together into helium. And then through that process, it releases a whole bunch of light and heat and energy. Now, when a star can't get any more energy out of that process, it's going to go on to heavier elements. It's going to turn that helium into carbon, and then nitrogen, oxygen, and eventually a star like our sun is going to sort of fizzle out. It will poof out these different layers, and each of them give off its very own color when it's lit up by a little white dwarf on the inside. But that's for stars that are about the mass of our sun. Other stars can do something even more spectacular. We currently can't see the star Antares, but it is over in the southwest, about 20 degrees up in the air. If it clears up a little bit, this is a really cool star to see. It is a red supergiant star, and I believe that's actually what Cass has the dome telescope pointed at, so some of y'all might have been able to see it. This is a star that is much more massive than our sun. It is what is called a variable star, and all that means is it is getting brighter and dimmer and brighter and dimmer over time. And it's actually doing that in such a way that scientists believe it is set to explode any day now. Now, any day now in astronomical terms means sometime in the next 10,000 years. But it literally could happen right now. And if it did, even with all of this cloud cover, we would still be able to see this thing pretty clearly. We know this because about 1,000 years ago, a star just like Antares exploded and created what we call the Crab Nebula. The Crab Nebula is a supernova remnant. That is because a star that is as massive as Antares, a red supergiant, it goes past oxygen when it's doing that whole fusion process, and it will continue going to heavier and heavier elements until at the very center of it, there will be a solid ball of iron. Once you get to iron, even a supermassive star can't get any more energy out of that process. And so, in an instant, the entire mass of these huge stars will collapse in onto this ball of iron. And for certain stars, it can go supernova, where a bunch of brand new elements are created in this enormous explosion. And in the case of the Crab Nebula, this thing was about as bright as a half moon. You could even see it during the day. And it was visible for something like 3 months. And that is something that we could see within our lifetime with a star like Antares. Now, the last most spectacular thing a star can do at the end of its life, if it's even more massive than that, it can become a black hole. And the thing that causes that is so much mass collapses onto that little ball of iron that it shrinks down into a singularity. Now, a singularity is just a tiny, infinitely small point that carries the entire mass of a whole star. This is pretty tough to wrap your head around, but we have been able to observe that there is a black hole in our very own galaxy. We call it Sagittarius A star. That is because from our perspective, it is in the constellation Sagittarius, which is about southwest. We can even see, do y'all see some of the stars down low on the horizon in the southwest? Those stars are in the constellation Sagittarius. And if we were able to see the whole sky, if we are in what's called like a dark sky site, somewhere way, way far away from light pollution, we would be able to see the Milky Way going right above our head through that summer triangle and right in front of Sagittarius. That is because that black hole, Sagittarius A star, is at the dead center of our galaxy. And so when you see the Milky Way, it will be, it's called the galactic bulge, where it is like the most dense. All of that matter from the Milky Way, you can see it most clearly right in between Sagittarius and Scorpius. Now that's a lot of imagination using, I appreciate it. Because as for what we can see right now, hopefully as the clouds move out a little bit more, we'll be able to get some more stuff. If you find me anywhere, I'll talk about anything that's visible up in the sky. But I think as for right now, that's all that I got. Thank you so much for coming out. I really, really appreciate it. All of us here are just students. This is a whole student-run organization, so we really appreciate y'all's support. I want to make sure that y'all check out all the cool stuff we have. If you go between those classrooms there are 2 huts. Don't miss the one that's on the right. One of them has a bunch of eyepieces looking at real cool stuff with the naked eye. And then the other one is using some really fancy scientific cameras to take pictures of deep space stuff. Of course, we also have the dome here, the Dobsonian telescopes all around that you can ask any of us and we'll help you figure out how to use those. And the Unistellar with Kobe right over there. All right, that's all I got. Thanks so much.